It has been weeks, maybe months, maybe longer than you want to admit, and they are still there. First thing in the morning, before you are fully awake, before you have chosen to think about anything, they are already there, in the shower, on the commute, in the middle of a conversation, with someone who has nothing to do with any of this, in the quiet moments you used to enjoy, the ones that used to feel like rest. They appear. You replay conversations. You reconstruct moments. You go back to the beginning, looking for the signs you missed. You imagine saying things you never said. You imagine them realizing. You imagine them regretting. You imagine versions of events that never happened and will never happen. And you imagine them anyway. And then you look at the clock, and another hour has passed, and you think, what is wrong with me? Why can I not stop this? I know I should. I know it doesn't help. I know thinking about them changes nothing. I know they have probably stopped thinking about me entirely. And still, I cannot stop. I want to tell you something. Before we go any further, nothing is wrong with you. What you are experiencing, this exhausting, maddening, seemingly unstoppable loop, is not weakness, is not obsession in the clinical sense, is not evidence that you still love them, or that you want them back, or that you will never be free of this. It is your mind doing exactly what minds do when something happens that they cannot make sense of. And once you understand what is actually happening, not just that it is happening, everything changes. Let me show you what I mean. Part 1, the psychology of the loop. Your mind is a story machine. This is not a metaphor. This is literally how the human brain is designed to function. Everything you experience, every relationship, every conversation, every significant event, your brain immediately begins to construct a narrative around it. A story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. Why? Because a story with an end can be filed away, understood, integrated into your overall understanding of reality. Moved past. A story without an end cannot be filed. It stays active, open, unresolved. Your brain keeps returning to it, compulsively, automatically, without your conscious permission, because it is trying to finish the story. It is trying to find the ending that will allow it to close the file. This is not pathology. This is not weakness. This is your brain doing its job. The problem, the specific, exhausting, seemingly endless problem, is that betrayal creates a story that the brain cannot finish, because the ending it needs, the ending that would allow the file to close, is not available. The ending the brain wants sounds something like this. I understand what happened. I understand why. I understand my role. I understand their role. I understand what this means. And I know what to do now. That ending, complete understanding, complete meaning, complete resolution, is exactly what betrayal denies you. Because betrayal by its nature is full of missing information, hidden motivations, unanswered questions, a narrative that was happening in a reality you didn't have access to. And so your brain keeps looping, keeps returning, keeps replaying, not because you are weak, but because it is genuinely trying to finish an unfinishable story. And the tragedy is, the more it loops, because every return to the story reinforces the neural pathway, makes the loop deeper, makes the next return more automatic, more involuntary, more outside your conscious control, until it feels like you have no control at all. You do. But regaining it requires understanding what is actually happening, which is what we are doing right now. Part 2. What Jung says about the obsessive return. Carl Jung had a specific understanding of why the mind returns compulsively to unresolved pain. He called it the work of the unconscious. Remember, the unconscious mind is the vast, deep layer of the psyche that operates beneath awareness. It processes experiences at a level the conscious mind cannot access directly. And Jung noticed something crucial. When an experience is too complex, too contradictory, too threatening to the existing story the psyche holds about the world, the unconscious does not simply store it. It keeps sending it back up, like a message that was rejected, returning to the inbox, again and again and again, until the conscious mind is finally ready to receive it, to really receive it, not just think about it, but genuinely process it, integrate it, make it part of the story rather than an interruption to it. Jung called this process psychic digestion. Your mind is trying to digest something it's swallowed whole, something too large, too complex, too fundamentally disruptive to the story you are living, to be processed quickly, and until it is genuinely digested, not suppressed, not bypassed, not distracted from, the unconscious will keep sending it back up. The loop is not the problem. The loop is the symptom. The problem is the undigested experience, still sitting in the unconscious, waiting for the real processing. That will finally allow it to become part of your story, rather than an interruption to it. Part 3. The projection that keeps them in your head. Now I want to talk about something that goes even deeper than the loop, because understanding the brains need to finish unfinished stories explains part of why you can't stop thinking. But there is another layer, a layer that Jung's work makes uniquely visible. Do you remember what we talked about in an earlier video? Projection, the way the unconscious takes what lives inside us, our wounds, our needs, our unlived potential, and sees it in other people. Here is something about projection that most people never learn. When you take back a projection, when the person you projected onto reveals themselves to be not who you needed them to be, the projection doesn't simply disappear. It has to go somewhere. And until it finds somewhere to go, until you identify what was yours and what you saw in them, and consciously reclaim it, it stays attached to them. Think about what you were projecting onto the person who betrayed you. Maybe it was healing, the hope that they would finally give you what you never received. Maybe it was wholeness, the sense that with them, you were finally complete. Maybe it was safety, the belief that in their presence, the old wound couldn't touch you. Maybe it was identity, a sense of who you were that depended on their presence to remain coherent. Whatever it was real, it was powerful, and it was yours, not theirs, yours. And now that they are gone, now that the projection has been broken, all of that energy, all of that psychological weight, all of that need and hope and longing still lives in them, in your mind, in the obsessive return. You are not thinking about them. You are thinking about yourself, about the healing you needed, about the wholeness you were seeking, about the safety you deserved, about the identity you built. That is now without its foundation. All of that is circling in the obsessive loop, disguised as thoughts about them. This is perhaps the most important thing I will say in this entire video, because it changes everything about what the obsession actually is. It is not about them. It never was. It is about you. about what you need, about what you are looking for, about what your unconscious is desperately trying to reclaim. And the moment you start looking for those things inside yourself, rather than in the loop begins to lose its power. Part 4. The specific forms the obsession takes. The obsessive thinking after betrayal does not always look the same. It comes in different forms, and each form has its own psychological meaning. Understanding which form your obsession takes tells you something important about what your unconscious is specifically trying to process. Form 1, the replay. Going back over conversations, reconstructing moments, looking for the signs you missed, trying to identify the exact point where the story changed. What the unconscious is trying to do: restore a sense of control. If you can find the moment, if you can identify the sign, then it was knowable. And if it was knowable, then you are not helpless. Then you have power over what happens next time. The replay is your mind trying to build a protection system out of hindsight. Form 2, the imagined confrontation. The conversations you rehearse in your mind, the things you would say, the things they would finally admit, the moment of their understanding, their remorse, their realization of what they lost. What the unconscious is trying to do: restore justice. The imagined confrontation is a trial your mind holds when the real world offers no courtroom. It is your psyche's attempt to get the acknowledgement, the validation, the sorry that reality has not provided. Form 3, the comparison. Wondering what they are doing now, who they are with, whether they are better off, whether they miss you, whether they have moved on as completely as it appears, whether any of it meant to them what it meant to you. What the unconscious is trying to do: establish worth. The comparison is your wounded self, asking the question it cannot stop asking: was I enough? Do I matter? Was I real to them? These questions are not about them. They are about the worth wound, the betrayal ripped open, the place inside you that needs to know it is valuable and is looking for that confirmation in the wrong direction. Form 4, the idealization. Missing not who they were, but who you thought they were. Remembering the good moments, the version of them that felt real, the connection that felt genuine. Wondering if that person existed at all. Grieving someone who may have been largely a projection. What the unconscious is trying to do: grieve completely. The idealization is the mind returning to the loss, not the loss of them, but the loss of the story, the reality you believed in, the future you had built in your mind. These are real losses, and they require real grief, not distraction from grief. Real grief. Which form is yours? Most people find themselves cycling through all four, sometimes in the same hour. But knowing which one is dominant, knowing what your specific obsession is actually trying to do, gives you something more useful than just trying to stop it. It gives you something to work with. Part 5, why suppression makes it worse. Before I talk about what actually helps, I need to talk about what makes it worse. Because most of the advice given to people in this loop actually intensifies the loop. The advice sounds like this: stop thinking about them. Distract yourself. Keep busy. Every time they come to mind, replace the thought with something positive. Redirect your attention. Fill your time so there is no space for the obsessive thinking. This advice is not given maliciously. It is given by people who genuinely want to help. But psychologically, it is almost precisely wrong. Here is why. There is a famous psychological experiment. People were told, for the next 5 minutes, do not think about a white bear. What happened? White bear, white bear, white bear. Every attempt to suppress a thought requires the mind to check whether the thought is present, and checking whether the thought is present activates the thought every time, without exception. Suppression does not eliminate thoughts. Suppression amplifies them. So every time you tell yourself to stop thinking about them, you are thinking about them. Every time you try to replace the thought, you are confirming to your unconscious that the thought is powerful enough to require replacement, which makes it more powerful, not less. The answer, the psychologically sound, Jung-informed answer, is not suppression. It is not distraction. It is not replacement. It is understanding, going toward the thought, rather than away from it, asking what it is trying to tell you, receiving the message the unconscious is sending, so that it no longer needs to keep sending it. The loop stops, not when you force it to stop, but when the unconscious finally feels heard. Part 6, what actually helps? So what actually helps? What does it look like to go toward the thoughts, rather than away from them? I want to give you something practical, something you can use, not a quick fix, but a genuine tool. It is called the dialogue technique, and it comes directly from Jung's own practice. When the obsessive thought arrives, instead of suppressing it, you turn toward it. You ask it a question, not to the person, not out loud, in writing, in your journal, in the private space of your own processing. The question is simple. What are you trying to tell me? And then you write, without editing, without judgment, without trying to make it sound coherent or acceptable. Whatever comes, you write. Because what comes is the unconscious speaking, finally being given the space it has been demanding. And what it says, almost always, is not about them. It is about you, about what you need, about what you grieve, about what you are afraid of, about the wound beneath the obsession, about what your unconscious has been trying to communicate. Through every loop, every replay, every 3 a.m. return, it has a message. When you receive the message, when you truly receive it, the obsession begins to quiet. Not all at once, not permanently from the first session, but gradually, measurably, really, because the unconscious, like any part of you that has been ignored, does not need you to fix it. It needs you to listen to it. Start there. That is where the loop begins to break. Part 7, the timeline question. I want to address something that almost everyone in this loop eventually asks. How long will this last? And I want to answer you honestly, not with a reassuring timeline. That sets you up to feel like a failure when you haven't met it. The honest answer is, it depends on the work, not the time. The work. Time alone does not end the loop. People who have done no work find themselves still looping, years later, still replaying, still checking, still held by the projection they never reclaimed. But people who do the work, who turn toward the thoughts, who ask what they are carrying, who begin to reclaim the projections, who meet the wounded child and give it what the loop was searching for. Those people find the loop quieting faster than time alone would ever produce, not because they forced it, but because they gave the unconscious what it was asking for: understanding, honesty, the willingness to look. You are already doing that right now, in this moment, by choosing to understand, rather than simply endure. That choice, that single courageous choice, is already the beginning of the loop breaking. You cannot stop thinking about them. Not yet. Not because you are weak. Not because you still love them. Not because you will never be free. Because your mind is doing exactly what minds do when they are carrying something they haven't finished processing yet. The loop is not your enemy. It is a messenger. And the message, underneath all the replays, all the imagined confrontations, all the 3 a.m. returns, is not about them. It was never about them. It is about you. About what you need. About what you grieve. About what you are ready, finally, to face. Turn toward it, not with dread, with curiosity. Ask what it is carrying. Ask what it needs. Ask what it has been trying to tell you. Through every loop that you tried to stop, it has an answer. And the answer, when you finally receive it, is the beginning of freedom. Not freedom from the memory, freedom from the hold. And that freedom, that real, earned, shadow-informed freedom, is closer than the loop, makes it feel. Healing is not going back. It's going forward, into someone more real. I'll see you in the next video.